The world is never truly silent, except after midnight. In that hour, noises soften. Streets breathe slower. Even electricity hums differently, as if afraid to disturb whatever walks in the dark. And in the Manfred household, the silence felt heavier than the storm outside. Adjoa paused at the bathroom door, towel pressed to her chest. Rain whispered at the window behind her, the faint scent of wet earth slipping through the cracks. She hesitated, just long enough for her skin to prickle, before turning the knob. The light flickered as she entered. Once, twice, a quiet warning she didn't understand. Inside, the bathroom felt too cold, like someone had left a window open. But everything was shut, everything was still. She reached for the tap. The moment her fingers brushed it, the metal felt strangely warm, like someone had just touched it before her. Water gushed out in a thin, trembling stream. Not steady, not calm, like something in the pipes struggled to breathe. She inhaled slowly. She would remember this moment for the rest of her life. It had rained every Thursday for 3 months. Some women in the neighborhood whispered about it, calling it morning rain. Others laughed it off. But Adjoa's grandmother used to say, "When it rains at night, don't bathe. Water remembers more during storms." But her grandmother was gone now. And Adjoa needed warmth, not superstition. The hot water steamed around her, turning the walls into fog. Patterns danced across the mirror, swirling like smoke. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth hug her exhausted body. Then the water changed. Not the temperature, not the pressure, the sound. The stream began hitting the tub in an uneven rhythm. Tap, 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 tap. Almost like speech. Almost like breathing. She frowned. She bent closer to the water, listening. A sound rose beneath it. Soft, throaty, wet, a whisper. She froze. The bathroom light flickered again. And this time, it stayed dim. Her phone buzzed on the sink. At first, she ignored it, until the uneasiness inside her chest grew sharp, like someone was standing behind her. She turned off the water. The room felt too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, waiting quiet. She grabbed her phone with trembling fingers and typed to her friend. The water feels strange. But she didn't send what she meant to say. She meant to type, "I think something is in here with me." Before she could correct it, the tap clicked back on. All by itself. Water streamed again. But this time, the water wasn't clear. It came out in faint, swirling murkiness, like disturbed river water, despite the pipes being spotless. And the smell, metallic, raw, unmistakably like old blood. Her hand shook. She backed away from the sink, her breath loud in the stillness. Then, footsteps. Not hers. Slow, wet, deliberate. They crossed the tiles behind her. Her heart hit her ribs with painful force. The footsteps stopped directly behind her, though she felt no wind, no breath, no presence she could describe. She turned slowly. Nothing. Only steam circling the room. But the tiles were wet. Not from the bath. Not from her. From steps, small ones, like a child had walked through the room barefoot. Her throat tightened. She wrapped her towel tighter around herself. The steam above her shifted slightly. Like something moved through it. Something tall. Watching. The mirror fogged again. She stared at it cautiously. But her reflection didn't mirror her movement. She lifted her hand. Her reflection did not. Her breath caught in her chest. And then the reflection's mouth opened, slowly, impossibly wide, as a whisper crawled out of the glass. "Leave the water." Her phone fell from her grip. And in the split second before she screamed, the bathroom light snapped off, plunging her into absolute darkness. Darkness swallowed the bathroom whole. Adjoa's breath echoed against the tiled walls, breaking the silence in jagged bursts. Her hands searched desperately for the light switch, but every movement felt thick, as if the air had turned into water around her. She steadied her breathing. Then she heard it. A soft click. A trickling sound. A hum, not from the pipes, but from the mirror. Her fingers grazed the cold surface of the wall until they found the switch. She flicked it upward. The light hesitated, buzzed, flickered. Then blazed to life. Adjoa let out a shaky exhale. Until she saw the mirror. A long, thin crack ran across its surface like a lightning bolt. But what terrified her wasn't the crack itself. It was the shape. The crack curved downward on both sides, like a smile. Her reflection stared back at her, eyes wide, mouth closed. But the crack across the mirror created a grinning face. A grin she wasn't making. She stepped backward. As she did, the mirror fogged once more, but this time words appeared through the vapor, written from the inside. Don't look behind you. Her entire body froze. The air turned icy. Her ears filled with a humming vibration. She didn't want to. She didn't want to turn. But something warm breathed against her neck. Something slow. Something real. She turned around, and saw nothing. Nothing at all. But the tiles behind her. Wet footprints trailed across them. Leading toward the doorway. Leading out of the bathroom. The footprints glistened faintly under the bathroom light, a trail of water droplets too perfectly shaped to be accidental. Adjoa leaned forward cautiously. They were small. Child-sized. Barefoot. Her heartbeat pounded so loudly she could barely hear herself think. She wrapped her arms around her body, her skin covered with goosebumps. The house was silent. Too silent. From the hallway, the world felt hollow, as if everyone else had disappeared. The rain outside had slowed to a soft whisper. The kind of rain that made everything feel muffled. She stepped out of the bathroom. The floorboards groaned beneath her weight. The corridor stretched out before her, narrow, dim, darker than she remembered. Shadows hugged the corners of the ceiling like spiders waiting to descend. She took one cautious step forward. The footprints continued down the hall, each one perfectly spaced, as though someone had walked calmly, unbothered. Not running, not dragging, just walking, toward the living room, toward the front window, toward her brother's door. Her chest tightened. She whispered, "Yeah." No answer. She tried again, her voice quieter. "Yeah, please answer." Silence. Then, suddenly, a soft creak. Not from the hallway. Not from a door. From the bathroom behind her. The tap had turned on again. Adjoa spun around, but the bathroom door was slowly closing. By itself. The door latched shut with a sharp click that echoed down the hallway. Adjoa backed away instinctively, her towel slipping slightly from her trembling hands. She pressed her back against the corridor wall, listening. Water rushed inside the bathroom, but the sound wasn't normal. It wasn't steady. It pulsed, like a heartbeat. A slow, heavy, underwater thud-thud, thud-thud, thud. She fled down the hallway, moving toward her brother's room. Her wet feet slapped the wooden floor in soft, desperate strides. She reached his door. It was ajar. Ya was asleep inside, headphones still on, his chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. Completely unaware, relief washed over her for a moment. She stepped inside and gently touched his shoulder. "Ya," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Wake up." He stirred slightly but didn't open his eyes. She shook him harder. Still nothing. She leaned closer. His headphones were playing loud music, music loud enough to drown everything out. He had no idea she had screamed. No idea what was in the house. She reached for the headphones. And then the corridor light flicked off. Darkness spilled into the room like ink. From outside his door, something whispered. "Adjoa." Her blood turned to ice. She slammed the door shut, locked it, and backed away, shaking violently. Ya shifted, half awake now. "What's going on?" he mumbled. She couldn't speak. She could only point at the door. The whisper came again. "Closer. I see you." Ya sat up, alarmed. The door handle twisted. Slowly. Calmly. Purposefully. Ya jumped from the bed, his sleepy confusion replaced instantly with fear. He grabbed a wooden stool and wedged it beneath the handle just as the twisting grew more aggressive. Thud, thud, thud. Something pushed from the other side of the door. Adjoa stepped back, pressing herself against the window frame, her chest heaving with silent sobs. Ya yelled, "Who is there?" Silence. A long, suffocating silence. Then, a small knock. Not frightening, not aggressive, childlike. 3 soft taps. Talk, talk, talk. Adjoa covered her ears. Ya grabbed his phone to call their mother. The moment he unlocked it, the screen glitched, flickered, and a strange voicemail icon appeared, one he hadn't opened. His hands shook as he pressed play. A soft static filled the room, then, a child's voice whispering, "I left the water." Ya's face was drained of all color. He looked at Adjoa, realizing, it wasn't just happening to her. It was happening to the entire house. The knocking stopped. The air grew cold again. Ya whispered, "Adjoa, what did you do?" Her voice cracked. I just bathed." Outside the door, something dragged a hand slowly across the wood. A long, deliberate stroke. Then a second. Then a third. As if feeling the grain of the door. As if memorizing it. As if trying to understand the barrier between them. The house seemed to breathe. Ya tightened his grip on the stool. Adjoa couldn't stop crying. And somewhere deeper in the house, the bathroom tap shut itself off. Click. Ya and Adjoa waited in suffocating silence. For a long moment, the house held still. No footsteps, no knocking, no whispers. Only the faint patter of distant rain lingered through the window's glass. Ya pressed his ear to the door carefully. Nothing. He lifted the stool from beneath the handle. Adjoa shook her head violently. Don't, Ya, please. But he had already made up his mind. He needed answers. He needed to know what stood on the other side. He twisted the lock. The click echoed through the room like thunder. Slowly, he pushed the door open. Just enough to peek through the crack. What he saw made his stomach twist. The hallway was flooded, not with water from the bathroom, but with footprints. Hundreds of them. Wet, shining in the dim light. All sizes. All shapes. Some small and delicate. Some adult. Some so long they didn't look human. And they all faced the bedroom door. Ya stepped out, his jaw clenched, his pulse shaking through his fingertips. The footprints extended down the corridor, around corners, beneath tables, up the walls, marking paths no living person could walk. Adjoa's voice cracked behind him. Ya, something came out of the bathroom. He didn't respond. He could barely breathe. Because at the far end of the hallway, near the bathroom door, one footprint was still wet. Fresh. Dripping. And beside it, a small puddle, with the faint outline of a hand. The air around them thickened, turning the hallway into a narrow tunnel of cold. The kind of cold that lived inside bones, not outside skin. Ya shivered violently. Adjoa wrapped her towel tighter around herself. Each step they took made the water on the floor ripple. As if something beneath the surface was breathing. They reached the bathroom door. The light inside flickered faintly. Ya pushed the door with the tip of a broom handle, too afraid to touch it directly. The door creaked open, and the smell hit them instantly. Not rot, not mold, something worse. The metallic, iron-heavy scent of blood. The bathroom was spotless, yet the water running from the tap poured out red for a split second before clearing again. Adjoa gasped and stumbled backward. Then she noticed something on the mirror. The crack had grown. It stretched from one end to the other like veins beneath skin. But worse, there was a new message written across the fogged glass, forming slowly as though by an invisible finger. You let it out. Adjoa clutched the wall to steady herself. Ya whispered, we're leaving. Now. They turned. But the hallway behind them had darkened entirely, like something had shut off every light at once. Adjoa grabbed Ya's arm. Don't move, she breathed. Don't make a sound. Something moved in the shadows. Slowly. Dragging. Wet. And it was coming closer. A faint whimper escaped Adjoa's throat as soft, uneven footsteps approached through the darkness. Not fast. Not hostile. Just, purposeful. Ya held Adjoa behind him. His breath turned into vapor. They heard a noise. Like a child giggling underwater. Faint. Distorted. Wrong. Then a whisper glided across the hallway. You opened the door. Adjoa's knees nearly buckled. Ya swallowed hard, whispering. Don't look. Just, don't look. Because he could feel it. Something stood just beyond the bathroom's light. Watching. Breathing. Tilting its head with curiosity. Adjoa felt the air shift behind her. A warmth. Close enough to touch. Her eyes filled with tears. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks. But they came from inside the bathroom. Adjoa's head snapped toward the mirror. A shadow passed across its surface. A tall one. Long arms. No face. Ya pulled her back into the bedroom and slammed the door. He locked it, shoved the stool beneath it again, and stacked books against the bottom. They collapsed onto the floor, shaking. Adjoa whispered, it's everywhere. Ya held her tightly, whispering. What did you hear? What did it say to you in the bathroom? She trembled harder. I didn't hear it, she whispered. Ya frowned. Then, she raised her head slowly, eyes wide and hollow. It whispered inside my reflection. In the mirror. Not in the room. Ya felt something coil in his stomach. Adjoa shivered violently. And Ya, it knew my name. They didn't sleep. They couldn't. Every few minutes, something brushed against the bedroom door. A hand. A fingernail. A palm sliding across wood with slow, curious intent. Ya's phone glitched repeatedly, screen flickering like a dying light. Every time he tried calling someone, the call failed. At 3:14 a.m., the lights turned on by themselves. All of them. The whole house illuminated at once. Ya crawled toward the window and peered out. Every house on the street was dark, except theirs. Their house shone like a beacon in the storm. Adjoa stared at the ceiling, her voice a fragile whisper. Ya, the water spirits. Grandma used to talk about them. Ya shook his head. Don't start that. But Adjoa continued, her voice shaking. She said some water listens. And some water talks back. Ya wrapped his arm around her. It wasn't a spirit. It was something in the pipes. A trick of the light. Fear. Stress. Something explainable. Adjoa looked at him with hollow eyes. Then, why did it follow us out of the bathroom? Ya had no answer. They sat in silence, listening to the storm. Then, every tap in the house turned on. Every faucet. Every pipe. Water rushed violently, roaring through the walls like a stampede. The sound was deafening, an angry, animal-like growl of pressure and flow. Adjoa screamed and covered her ears. Ya jumped to his feet. Water flooded under the bedroom door in a thin, steady stream. Clear at first, then darker, then muddy, then red. It seeped across the floor toward them. And when it reached their feet, it was warm, like blood, warm enough to feel alive. The storm slackened, but the weight of the night grew even heavier, as if the darkness itself had learned their names and had decided it would never forget them again. Amma's breath trembled as she stepped deeper into the corridor, her toes brushing the edge of a trail of water so faint she almost believed she imagined it. But she didn't. The droplets glimmered like tiny pieces of broken moon, leading toward the back door, the one nobody ever used. Kweku halted behind her. Are you sure we should? We don't have a choice, she whispered. Whatever came into this house, didn't leave. They reached the door. A single watery footprint rested at its threshold, small, almost delicate, like the footprint of someone young, or someone not fully formed. The door was locked from the inside. Amma's hand shook as she slid the bolt open. The night air poured in, cold, wrong, heavy with the scent of river mud. Kweku's flashlight flickered, caught itself, then illuminated the backyard. The grass was soaked as if rain had fallen only there. The path of wet footprints continued past the last orange tree and into the open field behind the house, stretching toward the abandoned well. Amma swallowed. Nana Ijoa used to say that well should have been sealed. Kweku didn't answer. He already knew the stories, the ones whispered by the old hunters, the ones that sounded like fables until you stood in a yard where water moved without rain. They stepped out slowly, careful not to disturb the rhythm of the footprints. The well loomed ahead, cracked stone, vines growing over its side like twisted fingers. The wooden cover, which had been nailed shut years ago, now hung broken at the edge. A soft sound drifted from inside. A drip, then another, then another. Amma gripped Kweku's arm. She bathed at night, Amma murmured, voice barely audible. That must be what called it. Called what? Kweku whispered. Amma didn't answer, because something inside the well answered for her. A faint breath. Wet. Slow. Almost curious. Kweku forced himself to look. He leaned his flashlight over the rim, expecting the beam to hit only black water. Instead, the light caught a hand. A pale, dripping hand pressed against the inner wall of the well. Not reaching up, reaching out, toward them. Kweku stumbled back so quickly he nearly slipped. The hand withdrew, disappearing into the dark water. Amma grabbed his wrist. We have too. But the air shifted. The grass rustled. The cicadas silenced all at once. And then, a footstep behind them. They turned. Nothing. But something had moved. The air had the echo of a presence, the slight pressure that comes when someone stands too close. Amma felt a cold trickle touch her ankle. She flinched and looked down. A single droplet of water slid across her skin, coming from nowhere. Just like what had touched Afia before she vanished. No, Amma whispered. Please, not again. Kweku scanned the field with the flashlight, until he froze. On the far edge of the grass stood a figure. Still, silent, watching. Bare feet, wet hair stuck to its face. Shoulders slumped forward like a marionette half pulled by strings. For a moment it almost looked human. Almost. Amma's voice broke. Afia. But the figure's head twitched, a sharp, unnatural movement. The eyes reflected only white. And then it began to walk toward them. Its movements weren't footsteps, they were drips. Each time its foot touched the ground, a splash echoed faintly, like stepping into an invisible pool. Kweku grabbed Amma's hand. Don't look at it, run. They sprinted across the field, stumbling through the wet grass, breath sharp and ragged. Behind them, the steps grew faster, splashing, dragging, pulling closer. They reached the house. Amma shoved the door closed and bolted it. Silence, except for the wet breathing on the other side. A slow, steady inhale. A slow, steady exhale. Then the doorknob turned. Amma screamed and backed away. But the door didn't open. The breathing stopped. The darkness outside shifted, and something whispered through the wood, soft, fragile, soaked. Amma, her sister's voice, but stretched, warped, hollow. No, Amma trembled. That's not AFIA. That's not AFIA. Kweku paced backward toward the living room, pulling her with him. Amma, don't listen. They mimic voices. That's how they lure people to night baths. That's how they call you. Don't speak to it. But Amma could not stop crying. Because the voice outside the door changed again, becoming younger. Smaller. Exactly like AFIA on the day she first learned to talk. Sis. Amma covered her ears but still heard it. Sis, come back. The whispering stopped suddenly. And then the footsteps began again, moving around the house. Slow. Searching. Until the thing paused beneath the bathroom window. Kweku realized the truth too late. It's trying to go back to where it found her. The old bath basin, the one AFIA had used seconds before she disappeared. Water had called it then. Water would call it again. Amma grabbed Kweku's hand. We can't let it inside, we can't let it take anyone else. But before they could act, before they could utter another word, the water in the house began to move. Not spill. Not flow. Move. Crawling across the floor. Sliding up the walls. Gathering beneath the bathroom door as if obeying something unseen. And from the other side of the wood came a wet tapping. Knock. 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 Not with a hand. With something dripping. Something that wanted to be let in. Amma sobbed. Kweku, it's not going to leave us alone. The tapping shifted. Became pounding. Then, silence. The basin inside the bathroom began to fill. On its own. Water rising, cold fog creeping under the doorway. And then a whisper that made their bones tremble. Come, bathe. Kweku stepped in front of Amma, shielding her. Whatever happened next, they knew there would be no going back. The night had chosen them. And the hour of water had only just begun. The pounding inside the bathroom stopped so abruptly that the silence felt violent. Kweku stared at the door, chest heaving, every instinct screaming for him to run, but there was nowhere left to run to. The house, once familiar, now felt like an echo chamber where something ancient listened from inside the walls. The bathroom basin gurgled. Once. Then again, louder, as though something heavy shifted inside the water. Amma clutched the front of Kweku's shirt. It's inside, she whispered. It doesn't need the door. It doesn't even need to knock. The floor beneath their feet grew cold. Not normal cold, but the deep, bone-pinching cold of river water at midnight. A thin sheet of moisture crept across the tiles, shimmering faintly as it stretched toward their toes. Kweku pulled her backward. We don't let it touch us. Not even a drop. But the water kept reaching, not as a puddle, as fingers. Long, thin trails slid across the floor, separating into branching shapes that moved too deliberately to be caused by gravity. Amma swallowed a scream. Kweku, it's searching. She wasn't wrong. The water crawled around the table legs, swept across the rug, tracing slow, thoughtful paths across the floorboards as if mapping the house, learning its corners, listening for movement. The air thickened with humidity. Every breath tasted of iron and old wells. Then, footsteps upstairs. Slow, heavy, dragging. Kweku stiffened. Amma, your mother's room. Amma shook her head violently. She's sleeping. Don't say anything. Don't. But the footsteps reached the top of the stairs. Each step came with a wet thud, as though the foot hitting the wood wasn't flesh but something waterlogged. Amma covered her mouth with both hands. The footsteps stopped at the landing. Then turned, heading down. The staircase creaked, groaned, then trembled, not from weight, but from the unnatural way the steps were taken. Each step came too fast, too rhythmically, like something was practicing how to walk like a living person. The air in the room tightened. A shadow elongated across the far wall. A head, a neck, A wet, sagging shoulder. Descending. Kweku grabbed Amma and pulled her behind the sofa, crouching low. The living room lights flickered violently, then died, plunging everything into a suffocating darkness. The only light came from the corridor, a faint, bluish glow drifting from the half-open bathroom door. The water on the floor shivered in response. The thing on the stairs finally reached the bottom. A soft splash echoed. Amma clung to Kweku's shoulder, shaking. Something moved just beyond the edge of sight. A foot slid into the corridor. Bare, gray, dripping. Then the other foot. Then the torso. Then the head, tilted strangely, as if its neck had forgotten where it belonged. Its hair hung soaked, matted, forming dark ropes that masked its face. The figure stepped forward, leaving wet marks that spread unnaturally fast, each footprint pulsing outward like ripples on a lake. It turned toward the living room. Its pale eyes glowed faintly through the curtain of hair, not seeing, yet aware. Searching. Listening. The water on the floor responded instantly, rising, cooling, slithering toward the intruder's feet like obedient servants. Amma's breath hitched, too loud. The figure's head snapped to the side. Right toward them. Kweku clamped his hand over her mouth. The creature stepped into the living room. Slowly. Deliberately. Drawn by something both alive and warm. The water swelled around its ankles, climbing upward like veins. Its head twitched as it sniffed the air, not for scent, but for heat. Humans were warm. Showers were warm. Night baths were warm. Warmth called it. Tragedy fed it. Kweku felt Amma trembling so violently he feared the creature could hear her heartbeat. The figure took one more step. Then another. It reached the center of the living room. Its wet hair clung to the floor, dragging behind it like tendrils. The creature paused, tilted its head slowly, listening. The water beneath the sofa began to move. A thin line of moisture rose like a snake, creeping toward Amma's knee. Kweku saw it. He grabbed her wrist. His eyes widened. Don't move. But the water kept coming. 3 centimeters. 2. 1. It touched her skin. Amma gasped. The creature whipped around instantly, eyes flaring white, mouth opening, releasing a sound that wasn't a scream but a choke, like someone drowning while trying to cry out. The floorboards trembled. The water reacted, wildly, spreading in every direction. The creature lunged toward the sofa. Kweku made a split-second decision. He grabbed Amma's hand and bolted toward the back door. The creature shrieked, a sound like water boiling over stone, and surged after them, knocking over chairs, sending a wave of cold water chasing across the floor. Kweku threw the back door open. Amma sprinted through, but Kweku slipped on the soaked ground. He slammed into the doorway as the creature reached the threshold, its hand stretching toward his ankle. Amma screamed, turning back. Kweku. He kicked backward instinctively, hitting the air, but the creature didn't need contact. Water rose from the ground like a tendril, wrapping around his foot, gripping tight. Cold, paralyzing, ancient. Amma grabbed his arms and pulled with all her strength. The creature hissed, rising from the floor like a silhouette born from drowned memory. For the first time, Kweku saw its face clearly. And wished he hadn't. It was Afia's face, but not really hers. A reassembled version. A water-logged imitation. A mask shaped by something that remembered her, but not enough. Amma's scream tore through the night. Afi AAA. Let him go. The creature paused, recognizing the name, or pretending to. Its head turned slowly toward Amma. Then, a voice echoed from its throat. A child's voice. Broken. Carried on bubbles. Sis, help. Amma froze. A fatal mistake. The water seized her ankle too. With impossible strength, the creature dragged both of them across the threshold, back into the darkness. Back into the house where the night bath curse waited to finish what it had begun. The creature dragged them both back into the house with a strength that didn't belong to anything human. The floor was slick beneath them, water pulling like hands, guiding them toward the bathroom, the place where the veil between the living and the drowned was thinnest. Amma clutched the doorframe with both hands, her nails scraping wood. Kweku, don't let go. Kweku tried to anchor himself, pushing his heels into the soaked floor, but the creature's grip, made of water and bone and memory, was unbreakable. Its pale, distorted face hovered inches from his, forming something like a smile that did not belong to Afia, but to something using her features like a mask. Afi, you don't have to, Amma's voice cracked, drowned by terror. The creature jerked violently, pulling Kweku into the bathroom. Amma screamed and lunged forward, grasping his wrist just as he disappeared through the doorway. The bathroom light flickered, then steadied. Everything inside was wet, not damp, not splashed, drowned. The walls dripped steadily. The mirror was fogged from the inside. The ceiling sweat cold droplets like tears. And the tub, the old metal bathtub, was filling by itself, but not with clean water. With dark, swirling liquid that moved like ink, shadows writhing inside. Amma held the doorframe so hard her knuckles went white. Amma, don't come inside. Kweku gasped, struggling against the creature's water-wrapped grip. But the water was rising around his legs like a living tide, dragging him inch by inch toward the tub. Amma couldn't let go. She wouldn't. Kweku, please, pull. He tried, every muscle strained, but the creature only tilted its head, watching his struggle with blank curiosity. Then, its mouth opened, a slow, unnatural stretch. And a voice slithered out, layered with echoes. Sis, come bathe. Amma shook her head so hard her braids hit her cheeks. That's not her voice. Stop using her voice. The creature stepped closer. Amma felt the cold radiating from it, the cold of midnight wells and old riverbeds where the sun had never touched. Suddenly, the water in the tub surged upward, not splashing, not spilling, but rising like a vertical column, forming a spiraling arm of liquid reaching toward Kweku's chest. Kweku's eyes widened. Amma, don't look at the water, it's... The water slammed into his chest. He choked. Not on water. On cold. A deep, ancient cold that filled his lungs with the weight of rivers. His breath tore in ragged gasps as the water dragged him fully into the bathroom. Amma screamed and clung harder. No, you can't take him. She pulled with every desperate ounce of strength left in her. The creature watched silently. Its pale eyes flickered. Then it moved. Not toward Kweku. Toward Amma. The water around her ankles surged up her calves in a blink, clutching her like icy ropes and yanking her deeper across the floor. Amma, let go. Kweku shouted through clenched teeth. Amma, let go before it takes you too. She shook her head. No, I'm not leaving you. I'm not losing anyone else tonight. Her voice cracked with the weight of her sister's memory. The creature paused, wavering, its head turning slowly, as though that word, sister, triggered something deep. Then, the house shifted. Not physically. Spiritually. The temperature dropped. The walls groaned. Every pipe in the house began to rattle violently as if the walls were choking on water they could not hold. And from the tub, a hand surfaced. Small. Childlike. Soaked beyond recognition. It reached upward blindly, fingers twitching. Amma froze. Kweku, that's Afia's hand. No, Kweku gasped. Amma, that's not. The hand twisted unnaturally at the wrist, bending the wrong way, then another hand emerged beside it. Then a head, not fully formed. Afia's hair. Afia's cheek. Afia's mouth hanging open as water poured from it like endless threads. Amma broke. Sis. She reached forward instinctively. The creature beside them reacted instantly. Its head snapped around. Its eyes turned white. It emitted a sound so sharp and wet it felt like knives scraping underwater stone. The water burst upward from the tub, stretching for Amma's hand, eager to complete the ritual of replacing the living with the drowned. Kweku roared. Ama, no. He twisted violently, broke the water's grip for half a second, just long enough to shove Amma backward out of the bathroom. Amma fell onto the hallway floor. Kweku was yanked inside. The doors slammed shut. Hard. The impact echoed through the house like thunder underwater. Amma scrambled to her feet. Kweku. The bathroom door shuddered as water slammed against it from the inside. Kweku opened the door, but the only sound from inside was water, roaring, choking, filling every corner of the room. And Kweku's voice, faint, muffled, almost swallowed. Amma, run. Then nothing. Just the wet breathing of something ancient on the other side. Amma pressed her forehead against the door. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm not leaving you. I'm coming back for you, even if I have to enter the water myself. From inside, something knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. Slow, deliberate, almost patient, as if the creature had realized something new. It had Kweku. Now it wanted Amma too. The knocking continued, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. Each strike against the bathroom door sounded less like knuckles, and more like something wet hitting wood. Amma stepped back, trembling, her breath sharp and uneven. The hallway lights flickered in short, panicked bursts, painting the walls in frantic flashes of white and shadow. The bathroom door vibrated with each knock, as though something enormous, or impossibly determined, pressed against it. "Amma." The voice was soft, too soft, like someone drowning under the words themselves. Amma froze. "Kweku." She stepped closer. But something was wrong. The voice came from behind the door, but it was layered, like Kweku was speaking under a deep pool of water. Every word rippled, every syllable warped, as though he were speaking with a river lodged inside his lungs. "Amma, don't leave, I need you." A sound followed, a choked gasp, wet, strained. Her heart tightened. "Kweku, I'm here. I'm not leaving you." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then another voice spoke. The same voice. Not the same voice. "Amma, let me out." The words landed wrong. Hollow. Empty. Lacking the warmth Kweku carried even when frightened. Amma stepped back instinctively. "No, no, that's not you." The thing behind the door exhaled sharply, a rush of air that sounded more like a splash than breath. Then, the door handle turned. Amma felt her soul drop. The metal creaked under the unseen grip. Slowly, painfully, the handle lowered, turning inch by inch. Amma backed away until her shoulders hit the wall. "Amma," the voice whispered, now fragile, almost pleading, "please, I'm cold." Her eyes burned. Her lips trembled. But fear kept her silent. The handle snapped back up suddenly, violently, as if something grew impatient. Then, the knocking stopped. Dead quiet. Amma waited, body stiff as carved stone. Then, she heard something far worse. Dripping. A single droplet hit the floor. Then another. Then three, steady, deliberate, approaching droplets. No footsteps. Just the sound of water walking. The shadow beneath the door shifted. Then elongated. Something was crouching on the other side. Watching. Amma covered her mouth, terrified her breathing alone might draw it out. A finger, thin, gray-blue, swollen with river water, with skin stretched too tight over bending bone, slid under the small gap at the bottom of the door. She nearly screamed. The finger traced the floor, searching, touching, exploring, until it found the moisture her shoes had left when she fell. It paused, then recoiled. The finger withdrew. The shadow vanished. Silence again. Amma dared not move. Then, splash. From inside the bathroom, the unmistakable sound of a body entering deep water. But the tub wasn't deep. It wasn't big enough to make that sound. Not unless there was more inside the tub than there should be. Or unless something was pulling someone down into depths that did not exist. "Kweku." Amma cried again in a whisper shout she couldn't contain. Nothing answered. Amma's tears blurred the hallway. The world tilted and swayed around her, her body shaking so hard she could barely remain upright. She staggered backward, pressing herself against the opposite wall, staring at the bathroom door as though it might explode outward at any moment. Something cold touched her ankle. Amma screamed, but it was only a puddle of water, spreading from beneath the door. Slow, creeping, but moving against gravity, climbing the wall, pulling upward. She scrambled away, heart hammering. Then, a sound echoed through the house. Not from the bathroom, from upstairs. A soft, watery footstep. Followed by another. Amma froze. Oh God, there's more than one. Her stomach dropped. Because now she understood something horrific. Whatever haunted the night baths. Whatever took the people who bathed after midnight. They weren't alone. The one in the bathroom was not the only one inside the house. Another had just reached the top of the stairs. Amma looked toward the staircase, her breath caught in her throat. A silhouette stood there, still, silent, watching her through the darkness. This one was taller, still dripping. Its clothes clung to it like a drowned person pulled fresh from a river, heavy, sagging with water. Amma pressed back into the corner, fingers trembling against the wall. Then the creature on the stairs moved. One step, heavy, wet, then another. Each step left a spreading puddle on the wood, each drop echoing like a warning. Amma's voice cracked. "Stay away from me, please, please don't come closer." But the creature continued descending, slow and relentless, as though it had been waiting for her for years. Her breath hitched violently. She looked at the front door. Then at the windows. Then at the hallway leading to the kitchen. The house was collapsing inward, spiritually, Psychically, the walls breathing, the floors sweating water, the air humming like a silent scream waiting to break. The staircase creature reached the bottom. Now she could see its face clearly. Not Afia. Not Kweku. Not anyone she had ever known. A stranger. A drowned stranger the river had called home long before tonight. It opened its mouth, water pouring out like a waterfall. Amma ran. She had no other choice. The water surged behind her. The creature followed. The house shuddered. The bathroom door thumped violently, as if the one trapped inside sensed she was escaping. Amma sprinted toward the back of the house, slipping, almost falling. She threw herself into the pantry and slammed the door shut. The sound of water hit the other side a heartbeat later. Not knocking, not tapping, a full body impact. Amma pressed her back against the shelves, chest rising and falling in sharp, ragged bursts. Outside, multiple footsteps, wet, heavy, uncoordinated, moved through the hallway. The house was no longer haunted by one creature. It was haunted by many. And they were searching for her. The night deepened around the village as though someone had draped a thicker cloth over the sky. Lamps dimmed for no reason. Crickets stopped mid-chirp. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. Grandmother Adjoa rose slowly from her stool, her joints cracking like dry twigs. She never liked speaking of the night bathers, the spirits that hunted those who bathed after dark, but tonight, she felt the weight of the story pressing on her chest, begging to be told. Come, she whispered, motioning the younger ones closer. There is something you must understand, something beyond the warnings. They gathered around her as the wind, cold and sharp, pushed against the windows. She took a long breath. Not everyone who bathed at night died, she began. Some were taken, some still walk, but they are no longer themselves. The fire cracked loudly. Their bodies return, she continued. But their shadows do not. The children stared at her, stunned, unable to blink. When you see a man walking without his shadow, she whispered, do not look twice. Close your eyes. Let him pass. That is not a person. It is someone who was caught bathing in water after the third hour of night, when the ghost hunters begin their rounds. Outside, something moved in the bush. Not a full movement, just a shift. A rustle. A presence. A silence swallowed the room. Grandmother Adjoa's voice lowered. And tonight, I fear they are hunting again. The youngest child, Senna, swallowed hard. Grandma, why tonight? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned forward, her eyes reflecting the fire like two fading embers. Because, she said, someone in this village bathed at night an hour ago. Everyone froze. A distant knock echoed across the village. One, then another. Rhythmic. Slow. Like something that learned the sound of knocking but didn't fully understand it. Grandmother Adjoa's hands trembled. They always start with the homes closest to the water. The road leading to the river. Across the village, a boy named Senna Kwesi, known for ignoring rules, walked alone with a bucket in his hand. The night was warmer than usual, heavy, pressing against his skin. He regretted bathing at night, but he had been sweating after a long day of farm work. He wanted to sleep clean. No one saw him leave. No one saw him return. But something followed him. As he walked, the road behind him glistened with wet footprints that didn't belong to him. Larger, wider, bare. He didn't notice at first. But he felt something. A sensation, like someone breathing at the back of his neck. He turned. Nothing. He walked faster. The breathing continued. Deeper. Closer. He turned again, more sharply this time, just in time to see a shape slip into the shadows beside a palm tree. A tall figure. Too tall for any man in the village. Its arms dangled to its knees. Its neck leaned to one side, as though broken. Senna Kwesi froze. His bucket fell and rolled into the darkness. Then, slowly, very slowly, the figure leaned forward, its head tilting, observing him like prey. It reached out an arm. Long, bending at the wrong angle. Fingers clicking like bones tapping stone. Senna ran. He sprinted through the bush, branches tearing his shirt, cutting his skin, but he didn't dare turn back. Not once. Behind him came a sound, like someone dragging a wet cloth over sand. Slow at first, then faster, and faster, and faster. Senna burst into the village and ran toward his home, screaming, "Mama! Mama!" But when he reached the compound, he stopped, because the same tall figure was already standing at his doorway. Waiting. Its shadow stretched impossibly long across the compound, yet when the wind moved, the shadow did not. Its head twisted all the way around to look at him. And it smiled. The smile of something that had once been human, but hadn't been for a long time. Back in Grandmother Adjua's room. The fire dimmed suddenly, like something invisible had stepped in front of it. "Grandma," the children whispered, "what are they?" "They were people once," she answered. "Children. Farmers. Mothers. Hunters. But night water changed them." "How?" "When the spirits pass," she said, "they leave a second world behind them, a world full of their hunger. They chase anyone who bathes at night because water softens the boundary between worlds. Water is a doorway. And at night, the door is open." She stared toward the window, her breath trembling. "And once they catch you, they wash you." "Wash us," a child murmured. "Yes," she said, "in the same water you dared to enter." She shivered. "That water is their hunting ground." The spirits arrive. Outside, drums began to sound in the distance. But these were not human drums. The rhythm was uneven, offbeat, like someone trying to mimic human celebration but creating something unsettling instead. Something wrong. The air grew cold enough that the children could see their breath. Grandmother Adjua slowly rose and placed her hand over the fire, whispering a prayer the children didn't recognize, a language older than the village itself. "They are searching," she said. The knocking returned. But this time, it wasn't on a distant house. It was on hers. One knock. 2. 3. Then a wet scraping sound across the wood, as if a hand soaked in water were dragging its fingers along the door. The children huddled together. Grandmother Adjua didn't move. She placed a finger to her lips. "Do not speak," she whispered. "Do not breathe loudly. Do not answer. They knock because they do not remember how to ask permission to enter." The scraping continued, slow, heavy, deliberate. Then, a voice whispered from behind the door. But it was not one voice. It sounded like many, layered, twisted, repeating the same distant, broken words. "Who bathed in our water tonight?" Grandmother Adjua's eyes widened. "They already know," she whispered. "And they will not leave until they take him." In Sena Kwesi's home, Sena Kwesi, trembling uncontrollably, crouched behind a stool in the corner of his mother's hut. His mother was not home. He was alone. The tall figure stood in the doorway, moving only when Sena blinked, changing positions in small, abrupt jerks like a broken puppet. First standing straight, then leaning, then crouched, then right in front of him. A hand reached out, wet, freezing, hovering inches from his face. Sena wanted to scream, but the moment he opened his mouth, he heard the whisper. "Come back to the water." Before he could react, another figure appeared behind the first one. Then another. And another. Sena realized they were all drenched, clothes dripping, hair soaked, eyes pale, pupils gone. Their skin looked like it had been in water for far too long, swollen, cracked, soft. One of them stepped forward and leaned close. When it spoke, water poured from its mouth. "You bathed in the wrong time." Sena covered his ears. The spirits reached for him from every direction. Then, a scream pierced the night. Not Sena's. Not a human's. A scream from something outside. Something worse. The spirits froze. They turned toward the doorway. They dropped Sena instantly. And they fled. Because something else had arrived. Something older than them. Something they feared. Grandmother Adjua knows. When the screaming began, Grandmother Adjua's face went pale. The children looked at her desperately. "What was that?" they cried. She whispered. "That was not a spirit." "Then what?" "That," she said slowly, "was the river itself waking up." For several minutes, Amma could hear nothing but her own heartbeat, throbbing so violently in her ears that it sounded like someone knocking from inside her skull. Then slowly, the house exhaled. The pantry walls gave a low, trembling groan, a sound so faint and subtle it was almost easy to mistake as pipes settling, or wood expanding. But Amma felt it vibrate through her spine, a deep, living vibration, as though the house itself was stirring, waking, breathing. She pressed a hand against the wall. The wood was cold. Not normal cold. Not night cold. River cold. The kind of cold that seeps into bone and memory. Something was wrong. Something was impossibly wrong. The cold crept upward, slowly turning the wood damp beneath her palm. She yanked her hand back in a gasp, and watched, horrified, as the wall began to glisten. A drop formed, hung, then rolled down slowly, leaving a trail like a tear. Another followed. Then 3. Then dozens. Within moments, the entire wall began to sweat water, thick, heavy droplets sliding downward like veins bursting open. Amma backed to the pantry door and pressed an ear to it, desperate to know where the creatures had gone. At first, nothing. Only silence. Then, a soft ripple, like water moving across tile. Then a second ripple. Then footsteps, not walking, drifting. Amma clamped a hand over her mouth. Something was sliding across the hallway floor. Something heavy, dragging, pulling. Then, a whisper. Not a human whisper. A layered whisper, dozens of voices speaking at once, rising and falling. Like chanting underwater. She's here. She's here. Don't let her leave. Her stomach twisted. The whispering grew louder. Closer. Pressing right against the pantry door. Amma's breath caught in her throat. Slowly, the shadow beneath the door darkened. Not from one figure, but several. Some stood still. Others drifted in and out of view, like ripples passing through a drowned world. Then, a splash. Amma's eyes widened. She looked down. Water, thin, dark, shimmering with a strange, almost metallic sheen, began to pool beneath the pantry shelves. What is happening? The water rose slowly, inch by inch, soaking into her shoes. Then her ankles. Then her calves. It was cold. No, it was freezing. A scream rose in her throat, but she bit it down. Her body trembled violently, teeth chattering, joints stiffening. This wasn't normal water. It felt wrong, ancient, heavy, burdened with memory. Then she realized something else. It was rising too fast. The water lapped at her knees now. Amma spun, searching the pantry for anything, to defend herself, to break out, to climb on top of. But all she found were old shelves filled with jars, flour bags, and kitchen items soaked and beginning to float. The water rose higher. A jar of beans bobbed past her shoulder. Amma climbed the shelves, pulling herself upward, arms shaking. She perched on the top shelf, hugging her knees, shivering so violently she thought her bones might crack. The water kept rising. It reached her feet, then her legs. Then, it stopped. Everything went still. Too still. Amma clung to the shelf, waiting, listening. Silence. But the kind of silence that felt staged, planned, as though the house were holding its breath, waiting for her to let down her guard. Then she heard something faint. A low hum, barely audible, coming from the water. Amma leaned slightly forward, eyes wide. The water was vibrating. Then, it began to glow. A low, pale blue light spread across the surface, dim but unmistakable, illuminating the pantry in a soft, ghostly shimmer. Amma's mouth fell open. No, 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 no. Shapes began forming in the glowing water. Faces. Dozens of them. Then more. Hundreds. Their eyes sunken. Their mouths open. Their expressions frozen in silent screams. They stared up at her through the glowing water. Some faces drifted across the surface. Others hovered just beneath. Others opened their mouths slowly, as though speaking, but no sound came out. The entire flood shimmered with drowned silhouettes. Amma pressed herself against the wall, horrified. Then, hands reached up from the water. Not physical hands. Translucent, shadow hands. They rose slowly, like memories resurfacing. Reaching for her ankles, her feet, her legs. They grazed her skin with icy strokes that made her whole body convulse. One shadow hand grabbed her ankle. Amma screamed. She kicked, violently, desperately. But more hands reached, clawing, grasping, pulling. The shelf rattled beneath her weight as she struggled to keep from falling into the water. The drowned hands tightened. Amma gasped, and the pantry door burst inward. A towering wave of dark water surged into the room, smashing the shelves, knocking everything sideways. And Amma fell into the flood. The moment her body hit the water, she felt every drowned soul in that house turn toward her. She sank deeper and deeper, cold swallowing her whole, hands dragging her downward, voices whispering in her ears. Stay, stay with us, stay. Then, something grabbed her wrist. Not a drowned hand, a human hand, strong, warm, alive. Amma looked up and saw someone standing in the doorway through the churning water. Someone she never expected. Someone she prayed she was not imagining. A silhouette she recognized instantly. Kweku. His fingers tightened around her wrist. And the entire house screamed. For a moment, Amma could not tell which sensation overwhelmed her more. The biting cold of the drowned water pulling her deeper, or the impossible warmth of the hand gripping her wrist, holding her above the abyss. The contrast was jarring, painful, almost unreal. Her lungs screamed for air. Her vision blurred. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs like a trapped creature. And through the churning water, she saw him. A silhouette framed in the shattered pantry doorway, bathed in the eerie blue glow of the supernatural flood. He looked like Kweku. He moved like Kweku. His hand felt like Kweku's, warm, steady, familiar. But there was something wrong. Kweku shouldn't be alive. Not after what she heard. Not after the voice behind the bathroom door. Not after the splash, the impossible splash, as if someone had been pulled into depths that didn't exist. Amma's chest tightened. Kweku, is it really you? She mouthed underwater, the question forming silently through bubbles. The silhouette pulled harder, dragging her upward, cutting through the spectral hands clawing at her ankles. Some recoiled instantly from his touch, as though whatever held her recognized him, or feared him, or perhaps, obeyed him. Amma's head broke the surface. She gasped violently, coughing, inhaling precious air. Her wet hair clung to her face, and her vision swayed. The figure still held her tightly. But as she blinked water from her eyes, her heart stumbled. Something about him was off. Kweku's eyes were always warm, even in fear, even in pain. His eyes carried a softness, a human uncertainty. But the eyes staring down at her now were too still. Too calm. Too fixed. Like someone wearing a human face, copying human emotion, but not quite understanding it. Amma, he said softly. His voice was familiar. Too familiar. Come, you're safe. Was she? Amma hesitated. The flood around her churned and swirled like a living entity, as though aware of its prey slipping from its grasp. The faces in the water distorted, mouths widening in silent anguish, eyes flickering with recognition. Some of them glared at the figure holding her. And for the first time, Amma noticed something chilling. Every drowned face avoided drifting too close to him. Not fear. Not respect. Avoidance. Like he didn't belong to them. Or worse, like he belonged to something else entirely. The figure tugged her gently. Amma, come, we don't have much time. His tone was so perfectly shaped, so flawlessly familiar that it twisted her stomach. Kweku, what happened to you? She whispered, shivering. He tilted his head slightly, exactly the way Kweku often did when confused. But this time, the motion was delayed, almost rehearsed. We have to leave, he said. Before it comes. Amma whispered, her voice cracking. The figure leaned closer. Something about his features wavered in the faint blue glow. His cheekbones looked sharper one moment, softer the next. His jawline flickered. His skin tone shifted, only slightly, but enough. Kweku, what's happening to your face? He didn't answer. Instead, he pulled her out of the water with jarring, unnatural strength, strength far beyond what Kweku ever possessed. Amma stumbled onto the broken pantry tiles, slipping on the wet surface. The drowned water hissed and withdrew from him. Literally withdrew, sinking, shrinking, pulling away from where he stood. Her heart stopped. No living person could do that. Amma backed up slightly, trembling. The figure noticed. His head slowly tilted again, but this time, too far. Bones shouldn't bend like that. Necks shouldn't tilt that sharply. Amma, he said gently, as though soothing a child. I came back for you. No, she whispered. No, you didn't. The figure blinked. Just once. But it was not the natural blink of a tired man. It was a single, controlled shudder, too slow, too smooth, like a puppet resetting its expression. Amma, he repeated, voice flattening, I came back for you. The drowned water surged behind them, splashing against the walls in frantic waves. The house seemed to groan, a deep, ancient moan, as though reacting to his presence. The figure stepped closer. Amma stepped back. Kweku, if it's really you, tell me. Her voice trembled. What did you say to me the day we met by the river? A long silence. The figure stared at her. Then smiled. But the smile was wrong, too wide at the edges, stretching just a little too far. Like the muscles didn't know their limits, or didn't care. You said, he began softly. That water is colder than it looks. Amma froze. He had said that. It was true. Word for word. But then, the pantry's lights flickered. And for a fraction of a second, less than a heartbeat, the figure's shadow behind him did not match his body. His shadow showed a taller form. thinner, with elongated limbs, and a head that bent at an unnatural angle, mouth gaping wide. Amma's blood turned to ice. The figure noticed her stare and turned slightly, but the shadow did not move with him. It stayed still, staring at her, watching. Slowly, Amma's trembling whisper broke the silence. "You're not Kweku." The figure's face fell flat. Emotionless. Expressionless. Then the mouth curved upward into a disturbingly calm smile, the shadow behind him twisting, jaws widening into something inhuman. "Amma," it said softly, no longer using Kweku's cadence. "You'll freeze if you stay in the water." She stepped back violently. The figure advanced. Water pooled around its feet, but not from the flood, it dripped from its skin. Long, heavy drops, thick like river sludge. "Don't run," it murmured. "It's cold out here." Amma screamed and bolted. The shadow lunged after her, stretching, reaching, growing monstrous and jagged as it chased her through the hall. And the entire house reacted. Walls buckled. Ceilings dripped. Every faucet burst open, spraying icy water in violent torrents. Dozens of drowned hands emerged from the walls, clawing at the air. The staircase rattled with heavy, watery footsteps. Amma slipped, caught herself, and ran harder. Behind her, the voice that pretended to be Kweku shifted, deepening, flattening, fracturing into layers of drowned voices. "Amma, come back. Amma, don't leave. Amma, let us in." The hallway tilted as the house flooded faster, water rising at a terrifying pace. The floor became a rushing river, pushing her forward and threatening to sweep her off her feet entirely. She reached the living room. And froze. Standing in the doorway, blocking her escape, was another figure. Not the mimic. Not the drowned strangers. Afia. But Afia was dead. Amma felt her heart stop. Afia's head hung limp, water dripping steadily from her hair. Her clothes clung to her like riverweed. Her chest did not rise. Her skin was pale blue, swollen, and cracked like she had been submerged for days. But her eyes were open, and she was staring directly at Amma. Behind Amma, the mimic approached, voice echoing through the collapsing house. Before her, Afia dragged 1 foot forward, water sloshing inside her lungs. They were closing in. Amma whispered through trembling lips. "I'm not getting out of this house alive." The house lights exploded. The water surged upward. The mimic lunged. Afia screamed. And Amma ran, straight into the darkness, as the drowned world swallowed the last pieces of her home. Amma ran blindly into the hallway. Behind her, Afia's drowned voice echoed in a horrible, bubbling rasp. Ahead of her, the house warped as though reality itself had become waterlogged. The moment she crossed the threshold, the hallway changed. It stretched. It darkened. It thickened with mist and dripping shadows. The walls swelled like lungs pulling in air. The wallpaper peeled itself downward like melted skin. The ceiling bowed, sagging under the weight of invisible water. Amma slowed, chest heaving. "No, no, please." The hallway was longer now. Much longer than her house had ever been. Dozens of meters. Maybe hundreds. A corridor that should not exist. She turned around. But the doorway behind her was gone. Her home was gone. Only darkness remained. A shifting, breathing darkness laced with soft, distant echoes, like voices calling from across a vast, drowned world. Amma's pulse hammered. She was trapped. Somewhere inside a house that no longer obeyed the rules of walls or rooms or distance. A house that bent itself to the will of whatever haunted it. She forced herself forward, step by step. Water still rushed along the floor, but now it moved with purpose, flowing ahead, pulling her deeper into the impossible corridor. The lights flickered overhead, each burst of brightness revealing something worse. A faint shape. Then another. Then dozens. Shadows pressed against the walls, outlines of people who were not there. Men, women, children, many of them hunched or twisted or frozen mid-scream. Like water stains shaped by memory. Like the hallway remembered everyone who had ever drowned. Amma hugged herself tightly, fighting the ice crawling up her spine. With every flicker, splash, a heavy step echoed behind her. She spun. Afia. The mimic. No. Something far larger. A shape too tall to be human. Bent forward, arms long enough to drag through the water. Its head brushed the ceiling, scraping, peeling paint as it moved. Amma stumbled back, heart seizing. No, no, no. The tall figure stepped into a dying beam of light. Its face was missing. Completely smooth, a sheet of swollen skin stretched where eyes, nose, mouth should have been. Yet somehow it looked at her. She felt it staring. A trembling whisper escaped her lips. "What are you?" The figure tilted its blank head. And the house answered for it. A low, distant moan rippled through the walls. Then another. The sound of 1,000 drowned voices humming at once, rising, falling, weaving into an unnerving chorus. The smooth-faced figure stepped toward her. Amma ran. She splashed through the water, slipping, skidding, shoving herself forward with raw animal terror. The hallway stretched endlessly. Doors appeared on either side, dozens, hundreds, all identical, all closed, all shuddering as though something inside each pushed to escape. But one door wasn't closed. A faint golden light seeped from its frame. Amma ran to it. She didn't think, didn't hesitate, didn't care what waited inside. Anything was safer than the faceless creature behind her. She grabbed the doorknob. It was warm, warm like human skin. Her breath hitched. No. Before she could pull away, the door yanked open from the inside. And a hand, gentle, steady, familiar, grabbed her arm. Amma gasped. She knew that touch. She knew it. Instantly. Kweku. He pulled her inside and slammed the door behind her. Silence. No towering creature. No drowned footsteps. No whispers. Just stillness. Amma staggered back, chest rising and falling in frantic bursts. The room was small, dimly lit, quiet, too quiet. Her trembling eyes rose slowly. And she froze. Kweku stood before her. Except, he wasn't drowned. He wasn't pale. He wasn't warped or twisted or ghost-like. He looked alive, whole, human, exactly as she remembered him. Amma, he breathed, stepping closer. Thank God. I've been looking for you. I've been trying to reach you. She threw herself into his arms before he finished. Her sobs tore through her body. She clung to him desperately. Her fingers dug into his back, terrified he might evaporate into mist. Kweku, I thought you were dead, I thought you. He held her tightly, smoothing her hair. It's okay. I'm here. I didn't leave you. She cried harder. But then, as her tears soaked into his shirt, she felt it. A vibration, deep and low, like something humming beneath his skin. She pulled back slowly. Kweku. His expression changed too quickly. Too sharply. Sadness to concern. Concern to relief. Like flipping pages in a book rather than real emotion. Amma's breath caught. Where did you come from? She whispered. Kweku hesitated. Only for a moment. But long enough. Amma stepped away from him. He stepped forward. Amma. Don't, she whispered. Her voice cracked. Don't come closer. He froze. Not confused. Not hurt. Still. Perfectly still. Then he spoke. Not with fear. Not with relief. With precision. You were not supposed to run into the hallway. Amma's blood went cold. Kweku never spoke like that. Her voice shook. Who are you? But he didn't answer. Because he didn't need to. Slowly, his outline flickered. For a heartbeat, she saw something beneath his skin. Something shifting, something gliding under the flesh like eels sliding through a riverbed. His face twitched, smoothing, reforming. His eyes darkened. His smile widened. Too wide, stretching impossibly at the corners. You should not be awake right now, Amma, he whispered. Then the walls began to melt. Water poured from the ceiling. And the room, the safe room, twisted violently, collapsing inward like a whirlpool forming. Amma screamed. As the false Kweku lunged. Amma's scream echoed off the warped walls, swallowed immediately by the surge of water that filled the room like a small ocean. The false Kweku moved with unnatural grace, sliding across the flood as if he were one with it. His limbs bent in impossible ways, yet each step sounded solid, deliberate, echoing with the soft, wet slap of drowned feet. Amma staggered backward, slipping on the flooded floor. Her hands caught the edge of a table that had floated upright in the sudden chaos, shards of broken wood cutting her palms. The flood responded instantly, wrapping around the table legs, dragging them slightly as though testing her grip. Her chest burned with panic, every inhale a sharp stab of icy air. Yet beneath the fear, a strange clarity began to form, a memory, half remembered from her grandmother's warnings. The water. It wasn't just water. It was a doorway, a bridge, a memory, a doorway used by those who had bathed at night. Amma stumbled over floating debris, gaining purchase on a fallen chair. She looked at the false Kweku, his smile now a grotesque curve, his eyes unnervingly still. "You're not him," she said, voice shaking but growing stronger. "You're just pretending. You're one of them." He froze. Then, with a flick of his head, the water surged, forming a wall that separated them. The glow of the flood illuminated the faces of dozens of drowned figures frozen mid-motion. Some floated just beneath the surface, mouths agape, eyes blank. Others pressed against walls, dripping and distorted, as if the house itself had trapped them between floors. Amma's gaze locked onto one figure, smaller, familiar. A child. She gasped. It was her sister, Afia. But Afia's body moved strangely, jerky and uneven. Her eyes were empty, reflecting only the pale glow of the water. Amma's stomach turned. The false Kweku began to speak, his voice now layered, multiple tones echoing over each other. "Do you want to know why this happens?" Amma's heart jumped. You're not him. Tell me the truth." The figure tilted its head, and the water responded, coiling like a living snake around his form. Then it withdrew slightly, revealing the pale walls behind. Amma noticed, for the first time, faint carvings in the wood, lines and symbols etched deep into the house's framework. They glowed faintly in the watery light. "They call me, the Watcher," the figure hissed. "I mimic what was taken. I am the bridge between those who drowned and those who remain." Amma felt her knees weaken. "The night bathers," it continued, "were not cursed by chance. They were chosen. Their bodies, susceptible to the flow. Their souls, delicious to those who wait in the water beyond the veil." Her grandmother's warnings came flooding back, the stories of spirits who hunted those who bathed after the third hour of night. The warnings weren't just superstition, they were survival instructions. Amma's voice was barely a whisper. Why did they take them?" The Watcher's smile widened, unnatural, teeth glinting in the watery glow. "To feed the river," it said. "To keep the threshold open. So we may walk among the living, learn their habits, imitate their faces, and prepare them for the water. And you, Amma, you are clever. You run. You resist. But resistance only makes the river hungrier." The water beneath Amma rippled. Shadows lengthened. She realized with a chill that the false Kweku had been the first trap, a lure. A mimic designed to pull her into the flooded corridors. A tremor ran through the house. The walls bent. Ceiling beams cracked. The water rose faster now, swirling with a terrifying intelligence, carving spirals and tunnels in the air itself. Amma's only thought, escape. She lunged toward a door glowing faintly at the end of the corridor, the only exit she could see. Behind her, the false Kweku began to glide over the flood, faster than any human should move. The drowned Afia lifted her arm, pointing toward the exit, as if guiding Amma. Her body shuddered unnaturally, and her eyes flickered with a hint of memory, recognition. Or bait. Amma hesitated only for a heartbeat, then ran. The water surged around her legs like living chains, clawing at her clothes. The walls themselves seemed to breathe, contracting and expanding with each step, forcing her toward the unknown door. The Watcher's voice echoed from all directions. "Do you know what happens to those who bathe at night? They are never truly themselves again. Their reflections stay behind, trapped, so we may live in their place. You cannot escape what you have touched." Amma's breath burned in her throat. The exit grew closer. She could see faint moonlight streaming in from beyond the door. With every ounce of strength left, she pushed against the water, slipped past the floating debris, and reached for the knob. The water hissed, the floor pitched violently, and the drowned voices screamed in unison. "Stay, stay, stay." Her hand closed on the knob. The door flung open. Amma fell through. Outside, the air was cold, crisp, and alive. The river lay still under the moonlight, silver and peaceful. Her clothes were soaked, but she was breathing. Alive. But the night behind her was not silent. From the open doorway of the house, a ripple of water expanded outward, and the faintest shimmer of faces floated just beneath the surface, watching her. Amma knew, with a chilling certainty, that she had escaped, but the river would always wait. And the night bathers, the mimics, the Watcher were never far behind. Amma collapsed onto the cold riverbank, shivering violently. Her body trembled not just from the chill, but from the sheer weight of what she had survived. Every inch of her skin burned with water that was no longer ordinary, every breath felt like it carried the whispers of the drowned. The moon hung low, silver and sharp, casting pale light across the calm river. It seemed peaceful now, but Amma knew better. Beneath its still surface, the river remembered everything. Every soul it had ever claimed. Every body that dared to wash in its waters at the forbidden hour. She sat there for a long moment, gasping, trying to understand, trying to convince herself it was over. Then she heard it, a low, distant hum, rising from the river. Not the natural flow of water, something else. Her heart seized. The river rippled unnaturally, and from its depths, pale faces slowly emerged. Not fully formed, not fully human, twisted reflections of those who had bathed at night, their mouths opening in silent screams, their eyes hollow but aware. And among them, the watcher. Its form was taller than any man, broader than a tree trunk. It rose from the water like a living shadow, its smooth, featureless face glinting in the moonlight. Long arms dragged the river toward itself, coiling around phantom forms that shimmered beneath the surface. Amma stood, frozen, every instinct screaming at her to run, but her feet rooted to the ground. The watcher's voice rippled over the river, deep and layered. Do you understand now, child? Amma shook her head. You and your kind have always been careless, it continued. Water is not to be touched at night. Not when the veil is thin. Not when the river awakens. Each bath, each careless plunge, feeds the memory, feeds me, feeds the river's hunger. You are clever, Amma. Quick. But even cleverness cannot undo what has been set in motion. Amma's mind raced. She remembered the drowned Kweku, the mimic, the faces in the house, the endless corridors of water and shadow. Is there a way? She whispered. A way to stop it. The watcher's head tilted slightly, the motion so unnatural it made her stomach twist. No. There is only one choice. From the depths, the river's surface bubbled violently. The water around her feet began to surge, coiling upward like a rising tide, but moving impossibly fast, wrapping itself like chains. Amma staggered back, but the ground beneath her seemed to dissolve into the river's grasp. The watcher reached down, the smooth, faceless hand skimming the water. You must decide, it said. Do you join them, or do you leave, knowing that your world will never be the same? Amma's chest tightened. Her thoughts flashed. Her grandmother's warnings, the children in the village, the drowned Kweku, the mimicry, the endless corridors of the house that should not exist. Then she understood. The river did not just take the body. It took the choice. Those who bathed at night were never victims. They were participants. They had allowed the threshold to open. And now, the watcher waited for her to falter. Amma took a deep, shivering breath. She forced herself to step forward. I won't let you take me, she said, her voice shaking but steadying with resolve. I won't give you the choice. The water surged violently in response, forming towering walls around her. Faces flickered within it, twisted in silent rage, some whispering her name, some screaming with mouths that moved but made no sound. Amma braced herself. Then, with every ounce of strength she had, she sprinted forward, straight into the river. The cold hit her like a physical blow, but she refused to stop. She kicked, swam, clawed her way through the glowing, spectral hands reaching for her. The watcher followed, gliding across the water, impossibly fast. But Amma remembered her grandmother's warning. Water is a doorway, but your will can close it if you move through it without hesitation. She forced herself forward, refusing to look back, refusing to hesitate. The river shrieked, the watcher roared, a sound that was both water and bone, both wind and shadow. The flood of drowned voices rose to a deafening crescendo. And then, Amma's hand broke the surface of a small, shallow pool at the river's edge, water that was normal, ordinary, and still. She dragged herself out, gasping, trembling, soaked through, but alive. The watcher paused at the river's edge, its form wavering, its faceless head tilting. The water around it began to recede, faces and chains slipping beneath the surface, dissolving into nothing. You have survived, it whispered, the sound fading into the night like wind through reeds. But the river remembers. Amma looked back at the river. The moonlight danced across its calm surface, but she knew the truth. The night, the water, the curse, it would wait. Always. Watching. Patient. Hungry. She turned and ran toward the village. Toward the warmth of human life, away from the haunted river, away from the watcher. Her body was exhausted, her mind racing, but one thought burned in her chest. She had survived the night. But the night would never truly leave her. And somewhere in the shadows, the drowned waited. Amma stumbled through the narrow, muddy paths of her village, soaked and trembling. Her body ached from the icy embrace of the river, her lungs burned, and every step felt heavier than the last. Yet she kept moving, driven by one simple, primal need: survival. The village was quiet, too quiet. No dogs barked, no crickets chirped, no smoke rose from the chimneys. It was as if the night itself had held its breath while she battled the river and the watcher. She reached her home, or what remained of it. The pantry, the hallway, the house that had become a labyrinth of water and shadow, had collapsed during the night. Only charred wood and shattered debris remained. Amma sank to her knees among the ruins, sobbing, shivering. The adrenaline that had carried her this far now faded, leaving her exhausted and hollow. From the corner of her eye, she saw movement. Figures. Human figures. Her neighbors. Villagers who had heard the distant screams and rushed out, drawn by the commotion of the collapsing house and the river's roar. They came close, hesitant. Some reached out their hands, others just stared, whispering her name. Amma wanted to speak, to explain, but the words would not come. She could not describe the river, the watcher, the drowned faces, or the mimic Kweku. She only knew what she had felt: the icy death brushing her skin, the whisper of thousands of lost souls, the impossible eyes of something that was not human. Grandmother Ajua appeared among the villagers, leaning on her staff. Her eyes were wide, but not with fear, with recognition. She approached Amma slowly, crouching beside her. "You came back," the grandmother said softly, voice trembling. "The river, it let you. But you have seen too much. Remember what I told you: never bathe at night. Never enter water when the shadows stretch long. And never forget." Amma nodded, shivering. She could not speak, but the words did not need to be said aloud. Grandmother Ajua continued, staring at the collapsed ruins. "The night bathers will always wait. They are patient. The river never forgets. And the watcher, it never tires." Amma shivered again. She could still feel the presence of the drowned reaching for her, even though she was on solid ground. She could still hear faint whispers, barely audible above the sounds of the village at night, carrying through the breeze. "Stay, stay, stay." The villagers helped her to her feet, offering blankets and water, but Amma could not drink. The taste of ordinary water reminded her of the river, cold, alive, hungry. Night deepened further, yet for the first time, she saw the stars. The moon glinted silver on the distant waterline of the river. Peaceful. But she knew better. That surface, calm as it seemed, was a mask. Beneath it waited the watcher, the night bathers, the endless hunger of what lay in water after darkness fell. Amma understood, finally, why her grandmother had been so careful, so strict. The warnings were not superstition. They were survival. And she knew this would haunt her forever. Forever. Because even though she had escaped, the night had marked her. The river had seen her. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of water and forgotten faces, the watcher waited. Patient. Hungry. Silent. Amma looked back toward the river one last time. She whispered a vow, even though the night could not hear her. "I survived tonight. But I will never forget. And I will warn others, so they might survive as well." She turned to her village, the faint dawn brushing the horizon, and walked forward. But in her heart, the night still lurked. The river still waited, and the ghosts of those who bathed at night would forever follow. The moon reflected on the water, silver and calm, hiding its hunger beneath a serene mask. And somewhere, the watcher watched.